Okay. Uh, Welcome to the second week of Designing Urban Ecology. And today we have lecture by Alexander Valentino from Naples, Italy. Cool City Naples is the title of his lecture, and reinvention of urban spaces toward an organic and natural metropolis. Urban space in Naples are strongly characterized by the abundance of various natural elements that have defined and supported the life of its inhabitants. This balanced relation between human and nature remained almost unchanged for millennia. But strong urbanization of the last few hundred years, nature and the water of Naples have given way to cement and other artificial materials, of course, through modernization and urban developments, like so many other cities. As a result, the nature of Naples is relegated, confined, and hidden. This lecture will be therefore about Naples' attempt to return to symbiosis with its nature that has historically defined its culture and urban heritages. One second. Okay. Alexander Valentino is an architect who studied photography at Academie der Kunst, Berlin in 1986, graduated in architecture at Federico II University of Naples after a year of studies of Erasmus in the Bauhaus, Weimar in Germany. He then worked as an interior designer on renovation projects in Naples while supporting the protection of industrial landscapes that were threatened with demolition. Between 1999 and 2000, he studied at Bartlett School of Architecture in London for a master course and collaborated in a number of radical architectural projects. And in Barham, he founded Codotua, space for artistic events before moving to Rome as a member of architectural group called Starker between 2002 and 2006 that explored urban landscapes and integration nature in Naples and in Rome and other various locations around Europe, and co-founded Observatorio Nomade, where he produced and curated many exhibitions there. In 2000, he founded LAN, L-A-N, Nomadic Architecture Laboratory in Naples, and collaborate with various North American universities and programs. In 2007 to 2009, he coordinated the European Roma Mapping Research Project funded by European Cultural Agency in Rome, and curated exhibition of the projects and work, and then published the project book edited by Black Dog Publishing, now defunct, in London. 2013 and 15, he was the first facilitator for Romed, social inclusion programs founded by the Council of Europe and the European Commission. And from 2015 to 2017, he co-coordinated the Romet project in Italy. Currently, he is working on the Cool City project proposal for Horizon European Union funding program in cooperation with ABC, the Neapolitan Aqueduct Company. So please welcome Mr. Valentino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Park. Thank you to everybody who is attending this lecture. So I guess you are looking at my screen, and will talk to you about Naples and its forgotten water resource. Naples is one of the first metropolis of the modern world. Together with London and Paris, it reaches the million of inhabitants in the 18th century. I will like to show you where Naples is, because you are very far from Naples. I hope you are seeing what I see in my screen.
Yes.
So, okay. So Naples is here, where this dot is. And it fits in the center of the Mediterranean Sea, as you can see. And with its central position, it has an important role in history until the end of 19th century, when the city loses the role of capital of the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, also known as the Kingdom of Naples, a kingdom that lasts for more than 1,000 years. The history, Naples starts its urban history when the Greeks from this part of the country start to move to the south of Italy to colonize different places like Taranto over here, in Sicily, many cities, and all around here, this coast. Actually, even other colonies are here in the south of France. But Naples has a particularly orography. You see, it's in a big bay here. This is the Sorrentinian coast. On the other side, it's called the Amalfitan coast. This is Capri Island. This is Ischia, Procida, and this is the Vesuvius here. See? So it sits here in between these two big volcanoes. One is the Vesuvius, and another one, it's called here the Phlegraean Fields, I Campi Flegrei. You can see from the Google map a number of craters of volcanoes. Actually, this is the big volcano. This is like a super volcano. You have a similar situation in the United States in Yellowstone. And the city sits here in between the orography produced by the eruption of these two volcanoes. I will go back to my PowerPoint presentation. Okay. I'm entering here. So the first Greek colony is here. It's let's say they colonized this peninsula, the small island of Megaride here, and the hill just opposite, Monte Echia. And this is Partenope, a commercial outpost of the Greeks. But all around the area of the Vesuvius, there are evidences of human communities going back more than 40,000 years. Parthenope, still Neapolitans are also called Parthenopei, we are still called like this, Parthenope is a mythological character. It's a half woman and half bird. In the 3rd century, this happened in the 6th century before Christ. Parthenope, it's over here, Megaris. In the 3rd century, a group of Greeks, together with the locals, decide to found Neapolis, the new city, and Parthenope becomes the old city, Paleopolis. And they have been lived, had a parallel life at the beginning. They had both, they were both surrounded by city walls, you see here. The city of Neapolis was founded by local inhabitants and by the Greeks, and with the classic shape of the urban grid, with parallel alleys, and for the main traffic streets, and perpendicular roads, and set in the local orography in such a way to taking advantage of the declivity of the hill, so that the rainwater could gently flow towards the sea without damaging. Was protected beyond the city walls by the Sebeto River that was here, as described by Roman generals once tried to conquer the city. So there was the Sebeto River on one side, there were hills here on this side here. There was a swamp on this part of the area, and the Mediterranean Sea over here. So the swamp was produced by the water coming down from the Vesuvius. It was covering big area over here. Here in this picture, you can see how the water comes down from the hills. And this is where the city of Neapolis is founded. On this map, you can see the ancient Neapolis surrounded by walls in the modern urban fabric. Let's say the shape of the Greek city is still recognizable today, has the same streets. The city didn't change very much in the city center. The streets are almost the same. So Naples, at the time of its foundation, is a city for 2,000 inhabitants and does not need an aqueduct, because the natural springs, the creeks, and the Sebeto River is enough. It's enough for the need of the inhabitants, for their agriculture, for the drinking. But later on, the city grows, and several aqueducts have been built. The first, it's a Greek aqueduct, then supported, restored, refurbished by Romans, which at one point let's say made an agreement with Naples. We didn't become a colony, but had a good, a good relationship with the Rome, and still, the Roman then have built a very big aqueduct. It's more than 140 kilometers long, and doesn't supply just the city of Naples. Actually, just a little, didn't need more water, Naples, but the Greeks, sorry, the Romans needed to bring water to this area, the Phlegrean field, which became a big Roman colony afterwards. They had also here the base of the Roman float, and the water, which had particularly was very peculiar because the water didn't get rotten, so it was very good for the ships to move around. The water was still always good to drink. Later, the aqueduct coming from Benevento was enlarged and was used in several times to bring more water to inhabitants that were always more and more. There were several adjustments, and but the city itself didn't change very much. The city remained compressed in the city walls, which enlarged just a little bit during 2000 years. This is a map we will see again later during my presentation, which is one of the most detailed maps of Naples of ancient time, of 1750, of Duca di Noia. Like many others, he is also highlighting the natural landscape of the city and its water. Yeah, I will not go deep in telling you about who has ruled the city in these 2000 years. Several kings coming from different places of Europe. Sometimes also Neapolitan, let's say, royal families, and all these maps until the let's say that with the unity of the peninsula in one kingdom, the kingdom of the Sabaudi, il Regno Sabaudo, a new king came from Turin. Naples starts a slow economic and cultural decline, and strong urban intervention destroys the ancient urban fabric near to the sea, erasing the natural connection of the city with the sea. These interventions had two main reasons. One was to modernize the older city, but another reason was to take control of the area, because the Italian, new Italian kingdom struggled to keep control on the inhabitants of the formal kingdom of Naples. The old South was a rebel, right? And interventions, after interventions, the urban, architectural, and the landscape, and together with that, general environment of the city has profoundly changed, and has dried out the abundant water of the city, at least in the official maps, I must say, because it's very difficult in the 20th century to find the water of the city recorded in these maps. It is not possible to recognize it. Although during the Second World War, there is a map produced by the municipality of Naples, which highlights the different underground spaces which were suitable to hide from American and British bombs, which has heavily destroyed the city of Naples for several years during the Second World War. Naples was the most bombed city of Italy because of the harbor and its strategic position. I must say here that these underground spaces, which are spread all over the city of Naples, have been made during a long history of the city. And at one point in the 16th century, there was a city law that didn't allow people to bring construction material inside the city walls because the city was becoming too big and too crowded. And Neapolitans started to dig under the places, the surface, and get the material of construction underneath. Naples is made, the underground of Naples is made of tufa stone, which is a very soft stone, but quite, let's say, resistant to compression. And it's very useful for walls. And then the city had, around the city were lots of castagne tree, some trees that were very good for ceilings. So the city is built all with these materials. I found just one map of modern time. This one is of 1986, 1999, made by Aldo Loris Rossi, which highlight some water resources of the city. This is Eco Napoli. It's an interesting map, although it's not that detailed. I must tell you that the issue of the water of Naples has intrigued my imagination for some times, but nobody was listening to my ideas to recover it until while I was walking towards my studio, passing through this building site. I was struck by all the trees that were chopped, and I had to walk down in summertime with the heat more than 40 degrees Celsius, and I was thinking at a school farther up on this road, which had on the basement some ancient water basins full of water. And I thought maybe this water could be used to cool down the area and let me go to the office in a better way. And I thought that it was possible to cool down the place for maybe 2 or 3 degrees. But then I went deeper in my studies, and I've seen that green areas and blue areas could actually make much more result to the local climate. And it was possible to contrast these awful heat islands that actually are affecting the city of Naples in the recent years, while the temperature doesn't drop down neither during the night. It keeps the same heat all night long, and then in the morning is the same. And with a good and studied punctual interventions, temperature could drop even 7 or 8 degrees and even more. And this is why I started to look to the water of the city of Naples and to trying to rescue it. Still official maps don't show any water in the city center. But some studies have shown that the things in the situation of the water underneath the city did not change in the last 100 of years. Here there is a comparison of data taken in 3 different times of modern history: 1900, 1900, no, 1900, 1920s, and 1970s. And the water level underneath the surface didn't change very much. Here, this map shows just, the city center of Naples is heritage for UNESCO. In red, you can see it's a very large zone. And in yellow, it's the buffered zone of this heritage site. And I will show you here a little bit of the water resources of the city. So this is what we call the Regi Lagni, which are artificial canals built in the 1700 by a famous architect, designed by a famous Italian architect, Fontana, and which were collecting several water resources in the north part of the city of Naples for agriculture reason, and they were collecting all these water resources and water all this area. It is a huge project that has been has produced lots of changes in the agriculture of the area, but today it's quite abandoned. It's not refurbished, and there is very much to be done. This is a picture of the beginning of the 20th century. Those are pictures of, not today, but some years ago. The situation has gotten worse. And this is the area of the Regi Lagni. I will show you another site still on that area. I mean, north of the city. This is the Agnano. It's not a crater; it's a depression of the soil, because this volcano here exploded, and the area here gets more depressed. And this happening made a lake come out here, because the water come si dice, the water underneath comes on the surface. This is the tale of the Duca di Noia plan. Other drawings showing the lake. There are even pictures still recording the lake in Agnano, which for some reason the Bourbons decided to dry out, because they thought that malaria was coming from this area. And this is a plan showing the canals which have been built to collect water, and through a very gently slope. This is 1 kilometer of tunnel inside the hill, and 1 meter, the sea, it's 1 meter below. So in 1 kilometer, it goes 1 meter down, and it let all the water collected by these canals flow towards the sea. So you can see it also in this Google map here. And here, the question is that there are there are 72 water springs in this area. A number are very hot water, 80 degrees. There are also very cold water springs. There are even sparkling water springs. This is an ancient picture, 1910. This is already in the 20s, where water is not there anymore. Those are the labels of mineral water, which has been sold for a while, taken by one of these sources I was telling you. And this is how it looks today. So the water is collected by these canals, and then brought to a water basin, and from the water basin it goes through the mountain to the sea. I wanted to show you here a detail, I mean a very small video, because the water this is the water coming out from one of these springs, and is hot water. Another movie, a small movie. Okay. on the east side of Naples, there is also water. I was telling you about the situation during the Greek time. In modern time, there was a switch of the Sebeto. Let's say they started to name the water on the coming down from the Vesuvius with the name of Sebeto. So still today, people say the Sebeto is coming from that part of the city. Although today it's not visible anymore, just in a few small spots. But I will show you in other drawings and maps the bridge here, still recognizable. And in the maps, I was telling you that until the end of 19th century, the maps still show the water of Naples. This is something of the 19th century, and this is in the 1920s. Still there is underneath the modern fabric of the city is still drawn the river, but after the war, in every map there is no evidence of that river anymore. This is a picture of the river towards the sea. This is a picture of today, what we can see towards the inside, towards the Vesuvio. In some places, the river comes out. This is what we usually see today of the river Sebeto. This is back to the 18th century. This is an old picture. And this is the Duca di Noia map, which is showing the river coming from here. Actually, sorry, like this. You see over here. And this is the bridge. The bridge is not even recognizable today. I mean, we drive over it, but it has been built right and left. So it is, you don't understand that you are on a bridge. This is again an ancient graphic. And sometimes it must be happen for sure that the bridge was I mean, useful. You see here, the river comes like this usually, but in some times of the year, they were growing agriculture, but some other times the river needed more space and the bridge was built for that reason. I mean, such a big bridge. This is another picture, I mean, another drawing of ancient time. And here we are in the city center. You see the first Greek colony. A castle has been built on the top of the island. And the entire coast of Naples has changed a lot during last 150 years. And here I show you a couple of pictures of this water. It was a very peculiar water. It was it's called acqua suffregna. It's like has the taste of zulfo. But it was very good for healthy reason. And Neapolitans have still used this water until 1973. It was very tasty and good water, and was for free ever. So some Bourbon king of the kings of Naples had issued the law that the water had to be for free and ever. And he also issued rules to, when it was crowded, the place was crowded, to be used by women first during the morning and men in the afternoon. And they were spreading these jars of water all around the city until 1973, while because, I mean, with the excuse of cholera, cholera, they said water was infected, was dangerous, and they have built this big hotel there. They didn't demolish the water source because it was public. Although today, I mean, they don't allow you to enter and see what is going on. They say it is it has been demolished. I will go deeper in that in the next time to see what is happening. But it is very interesting here what happens, because this is a public water and is inside a private building. You see here Monte Echia, and here was this water. There is a number of natural water sources, water springs in the city center. This is the most famous one, and still is in the mind of Neapolitans, of the older people. I mean, this project starts today because we are in the last, we have very few time to interview and to ask people about the water. I've interviewed the man who, remember, he was jumping from that bridge I was showing you, and he was jumping in the water from there. And soon the last memories of the water of Naples will disappear. Here you see that although the memories remains in pictures, in drawings, this is a sculpture of an important sculptor of Naples, Vincenzo Gemito, that liked very much popular subjects. You see these guys bringing jars of water, because also you know that terracotta doesn't just hold the water cool, but it cools the water also down. And yeah, I've produced a number of slides of the demolished water of Naples. And fountains, the city had also a number of fountains I mean, built by the various kings or vice kings of Naples for the folk, which had always strong power in Naples. It's an heritage of the Greek society that went on during the history of Naples. Here, it's an interesting picture, I mean, drawing of the royal palace of Naples, and the fountain built next to it. It's called the Fountain of the Giant, because of this big sculpture found in Pompeii. You know that Naples is very close to Pompeii and Herculaneum, that have been destroyed by the Vesuvius eruption. And this was found there in Pompeii, I think. And the fountains was taking the water of coming from a drill made by the Bourbons. It's a 400 meters hole, and the water comes up with pressure, and it's a very good water and tasty water as well, this one, and was then coming down from this hill towards the sea, floating here on the top of this barrier. And this is a modern fontaine built there in front of the royal palace. And there is a number of fontaines which have disappeared. Still, there is a good number in the city visible, although they don't have water today. Just a few with a machine, a motor, letting the same water going around, no? So this is towards the 19th century development of the city, Chiaia. Even on a pier, it was this is a pier for the ships, and there was an important fountain. This one made by important Neapolitan artists. This fountain actually has been brought to Spain by Carl III, King of Spain. It was a king of Naples that then became a king of Spain and moved to Spain, bringing lots of art, paintings, and even sculptures and fountains of Naples. But in the toponomastic of the city, these names remain. We have a Mezzocannone Street. Nobody understands what this Mezzocannone is. Mezzocannone is a half cannon, which was part of this fontaine. And this is an entire street. At one point, Carmignano in the 15th century built, could get some water coming from a higher level. He could raise the level of the water entering the city of 3 meters. And doing that, he was giving water to other districts of the city who lacked of water. And on the way, they've built all fountains here. This is a recent fontaine in the city center by the port. This is another fontaine by the sea, which is dry. And this is a fontaine which is hidden inside a modern building, behind a water spring, which is not accessible anymore. It's another picture just showing a project of this Carmignano, which made the water flow even inside and through. Let's say this is a royal palace built outside the city wall, Poggio Reale, and the water was entering the building and was passing through and giving water also to fountains. This was a pool, becomes also a pool. Sorry, the same picture of before. I took this picture just to show you, the layers of Naples. Naples has so many different layers. This is the Greek city below. Then there is the Roman time. And then there is the Middle Age time. And we are today on modern time over here. But many places of the center, you can go underneath, you can go underground, and you can check all these places, all these different spaces. I will show you some pictures made by Clemente Esposito, which is a speleologist and engineer he liked to go underground, and he started to measure and to take in account of all these empty spaces below the city. And he has spent all his life doing that, and he recorded a good number of places which are still full of water. And he told me that when they try to empty the water comes again very quick. So those places have been forgotten for a long time. You know, there are different reasons why this happened, and one of the reasons was also, I will not tell you about the reasons. Here you see how one of these empty spaces has been filled with junk. This is a hole of where they used to put a basket to collect the water underneath, and today it's full of junk. But many of these empty spaces are full of junk. You can see it also here. Some start to be cleaned today by locals, Neapolitan citizens who would like to recover these places for different reasons. One became a museum. There are several of these places who became so touristic tours. Naples has tourists just in the last 10 years, didn't have tourism before. Here you see another picture showing all this junk coming down from one of these holes and filling part of this water basin. And different holes produced in different time of Neapolitan history by the Greeks, by the Romans, by different kings. You can see here other empty spaces on the ground. And even produced by the water itself. You can recognize here cuts made by, in ancient time. Sorry, this is a bad picture. I've taken it. I wanted to show you some bigger underground spaces. This is a tunnel built by the Bourbons, the last kings in Naples, for their army to move quickly from their barracks to the royal palace in an underground shortcut. And this is the underground space of the Piscina Mirabilis. This is the name of these big water basins built by the Roman by Baia, there where the Roman had their float, and have found a map of this huge water basin. There are two of this size there built. So you see, this is a little bit underground. Mostly is underground, some part are overground. And I will also show you a couple of pictures of Matera, because Naples didn't have the need of building particular ways to use the water or whatever, because they had lots of water everywhere in the city. I didn't go in detail showing you all the number of water springs, but in Italy we have examples of living together with water and with the environment. In Matera, Matera became cultural city of for the United Nations in 2019. 2019, and after has been here, the city has been in the 50s and 60s an example of no, I mean the contrary, the opposite of a modern city, because people used to live together with animals inside these caves. I will show you a little bit more in the next pictures. And the city of Matera has been, I mean, people have been evicted, and a new city has been built on the top of it. Unfortunately, destroying the machine, the water machine that the old Matera was holding, because the water started first to enter the stone and produce some holes. The human being then started to build next to the water. This is a way, I mean, this is a way that people started to collect also more water here from the roof, you can see. Men started to build next to the water, their water basin. And they were farming outside and using also the caves for their animals. These are taken from a book of Pietro Laureano, which is actually an expert of water for the United Nations. And he has worked a lot also to let Matera become this cultural city after having this long recent history of being, let's say, not civilized. You know? Today we understand a little bit more about civilization and some good and some wrong effects of the civilization. Here you can see different kind of tanks, shape of these tanks. This was a way how so these places were built to get more sun during the summer, coming inside, and more shadow during the winter. This is even more south than Naples, Matera. You understand the climate. And this is a section of the hill and all this structure. So people started to build, and inside the holes produced by the water, enlarging these, but keeping water resources, and then building outside more structure, and using this space as a common space for agriculture. Those are interesting pictures, drawings of the neighborhood area, how they were then using a common space together in harmony with nature, I would say. Okay. Another thing is this interesting building, which is in Palermo, Sicily, and is built by the Arabs. You know, Palermo is an Arab city, has an Arab foundation, sorry, and actually it was never Greek, but the Greeks and the Arabs was trading. They were trading together. So the building is built right where there is a water spring coming out. And the building, you see the central, the main internal space is right where the water comes out from here. And it shapes the the design of the building. And I did not find plants, but interesting is also the use of this water to cool down the internal space. There were curtains, clothes, fabrics coming through the ceilings, and watered by this water, together with the wind in front of the windows, they were cooling down the spaces, the internal spaces. So the Arabs were for sure the most accurate designers of spaces with water. This is just a drawing showing the water coming down to the city, the main water sources. No, so, and that's it. I mean, I've finished my presentation. This is just a picture reassuming the most of the thing I've said about Naples and about where we are going to focus our design. Thank you for the attention. I hope you are still around.
Yes. Thank you, Alexander, for your lecture. Does anybody have any questions you would like to ask? Please. Anyone? Okay. Well, how do maybe then I will ask the question. Okay, Alexander, how would you consider that in your mind that the water could be reused or let's say resurrected from hidden conditions in your city and be reused to contemporary purposes in the way that you see that would be useful and that would be ecological and in sustainable manner? And how does it connect with the past usage of water that you have described? Is there any connection to that?
Yes, I will. I mean, I want to say first that I believe, you know, the new cities today, the new the city designed in this modern time can use the source of water for cooling purposes, right? And on the other side, we know that ancient cities have been built next to water resources that were also having this cooling effect to the environment. And we know that in the last hundreds of years, when I mean, for different reasons, but for sure there is the new technology that allowed the water entering the cities and going up also on the level, you know, towards the kitchen and bathroom of different buildings. They didn't need anymore this water, so they started to cover it. Also because maybe it became not clean enough, right? Because there were it was polluted by different sources, no? But how can we manage this heating effect of the new climate in ancient cities. So I think one way is the one of rescuing the water sources that ancient city had and still have, from my point of view. Then answering your question, for instance, I like to say a word restoration. So sometimes it can be even a restoration of what we had before. In Naples, for instance, this Carmignano has produced an aqueduct pipe that was giving water to several fountains in the city center of Naples, and these fountains were also cooling down temperature, together with giving the water resources to wash their clothes or to drink and whatever, and maybe this water could be used again, filling these fountains, and maybe once the water is used in the fountain, it could keep floating somewhere and irrigating more green. In Naples, in particular, where there is a kind of panic of nature. We are not used to nature anymore in the city, and generally in modern culture, in the Western country, there is nothing. Maybe in the East, in very far East, Mr. Park better than me, Japan, China. I mean, the culture of nature is more, strength to people, to culture. Whether here in Italy there is nature is contained into gardens which are very much human-made. The trees are cut in such a way, they are shaped inside some particular space, but men walk on a pedestrian. They will not walk in a green, on the grass, and for sure. Together with the Cool City propose of using the water to cool down the city, there is a need of reshaping also our culture in relation with nature, in that. And yeah, I'm not sure I've answered your question. Maybe a little bit. I can say something more. Yes, the sections of this Sebeto, for instance, or closing the tunnel that let the water flow from Agnano crater there on the west part of the city I was showing you. Just closing putting a barrier to that hole, to the tunnel, will make the water form a lake again in Agnano, which is, by the way, one of the areas highlighted by the European Commission as important biological areas, because there is a number of animals and of trees and of flowers, whatever, which are very important for the heritage thing that will disappear very soon if we don't support that system. And I'm not sure I've answered your question, Park.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And any of your students, if you'd rather like to write it in chat to ask a question, I can kind of transfer your question to Mr. Valentino. But we also have several guests who are professors at different universities at the moment who are participating in this, whose audience of lecture. Does any of you have any question to Mr. Valentino?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Hi,
Oh,
Mr.
no, you're not
Valentino.
interrupting. Go ahead.
I really like about your project about cool cities, and I search about it, and I see that it's like a series. It's not only in Naples, also Professor Park is part of this project too. And I have a question related to some aspect of Naples. So I saw that, for example, the agua sufleana, it's something like exclusion of the public natural resources. So I was wondering what specific aspect in the Cool Cities project deal with this problem?
Sorry, the question is what specific relevance has or political relevance has the rescue of this water stolen from citizens?
Yeah, like, because the relationship between people and the water, it's kind of bad from what I've heard from your lecture. So I was wondering how will Cool City Project deal with this kind of problem?
Yeah. Let's say, for instance, talking about l'acqua soffregna, this natural source of water used by Neapolitans for hundreds of years, no? And covered, taken from, the site there was, it was a former, actually he was a president. The land has been taken by a president of the state of Italy, together with another politician called Gava, if I remember well. Anyway, property went to a son of this president and to this other politician, and they had another project at the beginning. And then suddenly, when the situation went bad in Naples with this cholera, they've changed the project and covered the spring. And at the beginning, they still allowed the people to enter sometimes. But then they've closed it to the public, and how we will try to. I mean, what we are doing is what we are planning to do. What we are planning to do is to start to talk about that. We will have public events talking about the water of Naples, and we will have events talking about the water of Chiatamone, that water, l'acqua soffregna, l'acqua soffregna. And we will we are thinking to collect a number of interviews to the people who remember to remember the place. They remember to go there yesterday, the day before yesterday. I've been talking to a man. He was telling me that an ancient man, something like 80 years old, and he was telling me that he was coming down from the hill of Pallonetto, there by Santa Lucia, and before going during the summertime, he was just going with his costume, no, to the sea, and after the sea they were jumping in these water basins to clean up, and they were chased by people controlling. But we will try to take a number of interviews, and remembering what is disappearing today as a memory, and we will try to see also if there are ways to put the issue on a trial. And although the situation is a bit tricky, because the the Neapolitan king, when he was thrown out by these kings of Turin, supported by England, by the French. He had to, I mean, all his goods have been confiscated by the new Italian kingdom, and then by the state of Italy. And I'm not sure if there are possibilities. I mean, I've been talking with some lawyers who are who worked with the rights of citizens, and we will see if there are ways to rescue this issue after so many years. You understand? At the moment, I found very much difficult to find maps of the place before the new structure has been built. There is I mean, it is very difficult here to get through bureaucracy, but we will find a way to manage that.
Okay, thank you, Jessica, for asking that very interesting question. And if I may make a comment about that, would be that I think your question is very important in terms of considering that how that we have become very distant from the actual use, control, and experience of water, except for in a very utilitarian way. And the way that Mr. Valentino showed in historical images of Naples, you see that water was not only for the purpose of utilitarian uses, but also for cultural reasons as well. The water becomes part of a more aesthetical, more cultural relationship with the people. Okay, now we have maybe one more question that we could take on, either from the students or our special guests who are kind of hidden in our list of participants. I welcome you to ask the last question to this lecture.
I would like to add something, Kyung, about this water. I mean, who is in charge of the water? In Italy, the government of the region should be in charge of the water, right? But they don't have interest at the moment, and there is no attention to that. So we can argue that about the ownership of this water. You understand? We can try to find a way to argue who is the owner of this water.
Is it okay? I don't have a direct question. This is Nick DePace. I don't have a direct question for you, Alexander, but the one thing that came up over and over in your discussion in your lecture is how multifaceted, how layered, and how problematic water management is from the standpoint of scale and the relationship of scale to territory and to the people who live within it. So much of what has been sort of disassembled, I think, in the last 150 years in modern cities has been a question about the responsibility of water management and the various scales of responsibility or maintenance regimes that exist between where the water comes from and where it goes. And I think Naples and the Gulf of Naples in particular, because topographically it sort of is like an enclosed shell that faces the Mediterranean. It's such a great place to trace the various watersheds, in Italian falde, and to understand the relationship of those watersheds to where the water meets the sea. And at what locations that water is seen as a resource, and at what locations that water is seen as a nuisance or as a problem. And I think in the development of modern aqueduct systems that are water under pressurized pipes, we have seen water flow as more of a nuisance than as a resource. And like Naples and like many other cities in the world, it has sort of dismantled our intuitive understanding of an essential resource. And I'm really pleased that you were able to use Matera as an example, where it's a very visible, it's a very clear visualization of the relationship that the human being has to a very enclosed territory and how water trickles from the highest hillside down to the valleys, and how water can become both problem and resource in the narrative of the water descending in elevation. So I think these layers, and I would just speak maybe quickly to the problem of design, is that even if we imagine that we're designing for a very small scale or a very small site, we have to constantly understand and wonder what the management regimes are upstream. And I think that's an incredible challenge to any young student in particular who's going to take on some of the problems of this particular initiative. I think it's very exciting because it forces the designer to look at the scale of the territory and not just at the scale of the body. So I think it's really great.
Well, thank you very much for that response from Professor Nick DePace. And he's teaching at the Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, Rhode Island. And we also have a guest, Raffaele Maroni, who's also architect in Naples, Italy, also present in this lecture discussion. And he will give this class a lecture about his work and how he uses water as a very important agency and presence in his architecture and his design. Now, I would like to make a last comment before we conclude this lecture. And I think that the questions that were both brought actually from Nick and Jessica raises question is that the control of the water, I totally understand what Nick is trying to say is that maybe in modern developmental era of urbanization and in the let's say the second half of 19th century up to present time, that because of the development of the city and its capitalization as a real estate particular, but not limited to, the water was, I agree, seen as a nuisance, a problem, rather than a most important resource, a life source for human, like in the case of Matera. A good example that would be in Los Angeles, where you have built incredible infrastructure of canals to channel the water that really kind of blurs the boundary of water as a source of life versus water as a means of disposable of urban waste, and this infrastructure that is as to the similarity and maybe not quite, but up to almost scale of interstate freeways, I mean, or the freeways in Los Angeles area, is a good physical indication of that. I would like to say to the students that we will take 10-minute break for now. And I will resume with another lecture that I will talk about how water was used in a very important celebratory, religious and cultural way. Example showing designs of gardens and also underground water channels, such called qanats, mostly in the Middle East, in the Arab world. And so let's all give a really much thanks to our lecturer today, Mr. Alexander Valentino. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yes. All right. So we'll take a break and come back, and we'll conclude this lecture. Thank you. And you're all welcome to come back in 15 minutes. Let's say 11:05. Thank you.